so I show up and I'm like ready to go. And I'm like, okay, so I'll just be, here I am in the cockpit. And then he says, oh no, you're going to actually be flying the plane.
I think we are recording. Hey, Bree, how's it going?
Hey, good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, sure thing. So for those of you who don't know, Bree owns B.Mor Marketing, which is a local marketing firm here in Rochester. And it's funny, Bree, how we sort of connected. I was trolling the internets, I guess you could say, and came across one of your clients and actually tried to pitch them on services through an instant message. And you said, oh, no, they're mine. No, you didn't say that. But no, we got sort of in touch through that, and have been in the early stages of kind of working together and at least brainstorming on some projects together. So.
Yeah, absolutely. A very funny way to introduce ourselves to each other, but in the end, it worked out great. And the quarantine allowed me a little bit more time to follow up on talking to people like yourself and collaborating. And so here we are.
Yeah. So, we've talked prior, but maybe you could get into a little bit of your origin story on how you started the business and where you came from prior to.
Yeah, so a little bit similar to your story, I come from a family business. So that's where my deep roots really started. And I worked within my family's construction company. My dad has been in business for over 40 years. And he started from the ground up, knocking on doors and gaining clients that way. And so it evolved over the years into a design build firm. And so throughout my life, I've always been a part of that in some capacity, as you know, growing up in a family business. The dinner table is always conversation about work. And so for me, it was a natural fit that eventually I would own my own business. So I worked in their business doing an internship. I worked doing a few other marketing internships during my high school years into college. Attended Nazareth College and decided to focus on communication and rhetoric with a minor in marketing. Had some great experiences and internships here in Rochester, kind of getting my feet wet. I originally had wanted to pursue broadcasting, and I shadowed Ginny Ryan from Channel 13.
Oh, nice.
And I was probably 15 years old. My parents were like, it's time to start thinking about your future. And so I messaged her and said, hi. And I remember wearing this light pink suit and having this haircut like hers. And so we sat down and she told me more about what she did. And that's when I decided I didn't want to be too specific with broadcasting. I wanted to be able to have options. And so that's why I chose communications. And I have a passion for writing. And so that's kind of where it all began back in the day. And then snowball, fast forward, whatever you want to call it, to about a year and a half ago, I started my own marketing firm after working in a not-for-profit for a number of years and at a few agencies. I said, let me take this experience that I have and put it into action and help small business owners, just like the ones that I've grown up knowing. So I love to help small business owners with their marketing needs, public relations, anything brand related. And that's where it all began.
That's so cool. And yeah, very similar to my story, as far as growing up in a family run business and sort of had that eye for the future of I don't know. I think a lot of people early on know that they're sort of meant to, I don't know, do something else. Well, maybe not else is the right word. But something more, that entrepreneurial spirit that is there. And for me, it took a long time to land on marketing. I'm not sure about you, but I had been into tech early on since I was like 7, 8 years old, and it had been an interest of mine. And I remember making websites as early as like 10 or 11 years old. And for way back on Yahoo GeoCities. I don't know
Oh
if you
my
ever
gosh.
remember those,
Yes.
but yeah, I think I made a Buffalo Bills website or something like that, and probably had tons of copyright infringement. But yeah, I remember playing around with that, and then my generation, as far as high school goes, came up through the housing market crash. That's sort of when we graduated from high school, and so there really wasn't a lot of jobs to choose from. And so I was fortunate enough that my dad owned an IT business here locally, and it sort of worked out for me where I already had this technical background, not from a professional standpoint, but at least personally dabbling around in it up through my youth. And I worked for them for about 10 years or so. But I think I guess my point here is early on, I'm just actually turning 32 this weekend. Early on,
Happy birthday.
thanks. Early on, I'd say maybe around like 25 years old or so, I kind of just had this itch where like, I was like, this isn't it for me. Like there's something else. And anyway, circling way back to marketing, it took me a while to kind of come back around and figure out what that something else was. And I'd always been somebody who wanted to strive for happiness and do something that I love to do day in and day out. And IT, information technology, was that for me for a little while. But as I started to see, I guess, the landscape of the internet and how that was evolving, and then I kind of put together all of my areas of expertise, and along with what I love to do, I settled on digital marketing. So it's interesting and motivating to connect with people of like-mindedness and sort of have the same story. So maybe you can get into a little bit about maybe the positives and negatives of what you experienced in a family business setting, some of maybe the obstacles in going through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say some of the positives, touching on those first, is learning to pave your own path, having that mindset. It's all about having the right mindset and knowing I'm going to do this and taking action. And I think that a lot of people get stuck on their fears and not feeling as if, well, I'm not someone that's cut out for that. And I think it's so inspiring when you have a family that you're surrounded with that are truly carrying out a business and doing it. And it's so much easier. And I think for me to be able to say, I can do this too, and so I feel really blessed in that sense that I was able to learn from that. And I would say just the family unit of being able to I'm an only child, so working with my parents had always been a dream. And then basically into my teenage years, into college and working with them, and then eventually full-time working in their business before they recently retired, I was able to continue to have such a great relationship with them on a personal level, but also just learn so much from them on a business level. So the positives are definitely, they're endless. Of course, the challenges is always stopping that conversation. So, if we are at work, we're talking about work all the time, and then actually getting together to hang out. I know when I was fully in the business and I was here in Rochester working with them, it was a challenge to say, hey, let's have dinner together, and we're not going to have a work meeting. And so we spent a lot of intentional time saying, okay, this is going to be, Sundays, we're going to get together for sauce. We're Italian, big Italian family. And we're going to get together for sauce. And then, the other days of the week, we're talking about work. So we really had to set those guidelines. And then, especially in terms of when I was in meetings, it was always awkward for me to say, dad or mom and things like that. So we had worked with some coaches that really helped us, some family business coaches actually. And they said, when you're at work, refer to them as their names. And then when you're at home, refer to them as mom and dad. So you don't have those roles crossed so much, because that can be challenging if you're mad at them as a dad, but you're not mad at them as a boss. So yeah, I had
or vice versa.
What's that?
Or vice versa.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So that definitely happened. Yeah. So for just the whole process, the positives, the negatives, I think one of the other things that I learned, and that is a reality for any business owner, is that it's scary out there. There's going to be times where you're going to have great success and the thrill of victory is amazing. But then you also have to realize that there's going to be times when you're not going to have as much success, and it's going to be driven by the economy and people's choices and all the things that are happening. And so going through that process with them, I was able to learn so much in terms of, doing a lot of praying, doing a lot of communicating, gathering together with your team, and staying unified no matter what the season was. So,
yeah. I think what you touched on that, I've got a little bit of an echo there. I think what you touched on that resonated with me was a little bit more about the confidence building, right? That you have that family unit there to support you. And early on in any professional career, team, whether it's family or not, is essential. Mm-hmm. And I actually had a similar conversation with a previous guest on the podcast about what it means to have a great team and a supporting team. I keep saying that word, but going back to learning and being in an environment that breeds success, and I guess just having an example that yes, I can do it. And here are, certainly saw some challenges, behind the scenes, but you also saw how to overcome those and get better and move on. Or, maybe it was internally, right? An internal problem and things being family, you can get too familiar when it comes to work, but getting through that, I think as a family unit speaks to, I think it's more difficult to do. And so, it's much easier going from that family unit and working under family and with family now to transitioning, to business without family. It's just an easier transition, I guess is what I'm getting at. So.
Definitely. And having their support. I mean, I'm sure you feel that too, from having, your parents' support is or whoever your role model may be, having that support and saying, I can keep going and I can talk to them about this stuff, and they're rallying around you. I think you've been in the trenches together, so it makes it a lot easier to get through anything. Sure.
So maybe you could go into a little bit about your business now as a whole and what you offer. You mentioned small, medium business support, similar to what I do here. But you could get a little more granular into exactly what you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that makes it so great that you and I have had such wonderful conversations and been able to brainstorm together is that we complement each other in a lot of ways in our services. But one of the things that I focus on in my business specifically is public relations and brand strategy. So sitting down with a client and them saying to me, we're not sure the direction that we want to go with our brand, or we've started in one direction and it's not working. We need to change kind of the course of history here. I love those conversations. And so I take them through a process. Any new clients or prospects, I sit down with them and I always have that initial meeting and learn more about their business. A lot of times it's small to medium-sized businesses where they're saying, we've hit this roadblock in terms of marketing or branding, and we are needing your support. And so we begin this journey of talking through exactly who they are. So for me, I take it very personal what I do. And so just like my brand is important to me, their brand is just as important to me. So any client that I have, I want to know, okay, what's your overall business plan? So marketing is just a piece of that puzzle of that business plan. And so I think that's one of the things that sets me apart, is being able to sit down with them and say, I want to know the whole picture. I do care about what other things are going on in your business right now. And let's bring marketing in with those to integrate it all together. So that you can be more successful. And that's what I always say. And so, yeah, for me, I love working with businesses that may already have marketing established, or a business that is perhaps just getting their feet wet with marketing for the first time. So no matter what it is, I always will take them through that whole process of learning more about them and their brand.
Yeah, you touched on integrating marketing with the current business plan. I think that's huge, and something not a lot of outsourced or consultants really take into consideration. They're sort of have the blinders on and think like just within their space, but marketing, maybe for other departments or whatever, but marketing is unique in that it touches a lot of various different angles of businesses. And so, to take into account, right, like what type of campaign, the effects of a campaign and how it trickles down, into the rest of the organization, I think is big. Do you see a lot of business owners or points of contact, I guess you could call them, that tend to appreciate that? And if so, how does that relationship work with the rest of the organization? So like a lot of times for us, it's just talking with the specific person in charge, whether that be the business owner or office manager or something like that. Do you find that it's a little bit of a struggle to get that message across to the whole organization, or are there methods to sort of prevent that from being an issue?
Yeah, for me, I'll always start with, of course, the contact that I have and kind of start the process. But one of the things I love to do is get to know the whole team. So I guess you would kind of see it as almost an HR approach, because I want to know the team. I want to know, who are they talking to? There's someone that's answering the phone, and those leads are coming to that person, and I want to know what they're hearing. So I think one of the biggest things is forming those relationships, not just with the immediate contact or the CEO or the manager, but also everyone involved in the process. And I would say, to answer your question of, do people appreciate this? They do, if we're the right fit. And so I think that's such a crucial part of this is working with people that appreciate the value of a brand, the value of creating something that is going to be lasting and that represents them best. And there's some companies out there that prioritize that, and there's others that don't, and that's okay. It's just that typically I work best with companies that are valuing that perspective, and saying, instead of us just kind of taking action right away and just shooting out a bunch of different marketing campaigns, let's sit down and do the work and put in the time. And that's where you see the most success. And I'm all about seeing that return on investment for them. That's my goal. So working with the whole team and working with those individuals that share that same passion as I do for their brand.
Yeah, I learned that very early on, actually, in my IT career, in helping there in regards to the value that a client sees, right, in the work that you do. Maybe not even the work that you do, but just the field that you're in, and the negotiations are one thing, but there's certain industries that people know that they need, or certain services rather, that they know that they need. And in my professional career, IT was certainly one of them, and marketing is another very important service as well. So in speaking with business owners, you're 100% right. It is way more efficient and easier and way more successful long term in working with somebody who, one, appreciates the vertical, right? Appreciates like what that particular service means to their business, but two, has an understanding of really what goes into it, the thought behind it, and the time that goes into it. Because I think a lot of times when B2B businesses work together and you have an outsourced company coming in, there's naturally a lack of there's naturally a little bit of a disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not internally within that organization, so you're not there in the day to day. And so there is going to be that little bit of friction, for lack of a better term, where it's like the get to know you stage, or even, if a business relationship has been existing for a while, just a bit of hesitation there, right? And so building that trust in showcasing like what you can provide, for a business, I think is huge. And so, I don't know. I think that's always going to be an obstacle for businesses like us, where we're sort of this outsourced consulting role, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to be kind of the first to go, right, when there's talks about budget, but
Right.
having a business owner that understands the value that you provide is big.
Yeah, and just to touch on that a little bit more, I think that I love to see myself and my team as an extension of their team or their family. And so I think when I think of it like that, and I show that to them and I say, this is what I want it to look like. I want to be able to walk in and every staff member knows who I am, and they say, oh, she handles the marketing, hey Bree, how you doing? And for me to know this is the person that's handling accounting. And so I think that it's so crucial from the beginning to start that relationship, like I said, with everybody as a whole. And I think that kind of takes that alienation out of it, where it's like you're an outside source and brings you right into the family. And there's no greater feeling. I have some amazing clients. There's no greater feeling than that sense that you're a part of the team and that you're a part of the family. And there's so much security in that.
Yeah, 100%. We in the IT business I used to work for, I keep going back to that today for some reason, but
that's okay.
I used to be an account manager there, so would deal with a lot of this communication stuff. So, anyways, what we would identify as sticking points, right? So various, either maybe that's a person, or maybe that's a particular service, or like what's holding them back, and try to alleviate that first, and try to over communicate. I think communication is the biggest hurdle that an outsourced company or a consultant has to overcome. And so we really harped on that. And I think I've carried that over into my business as well. Sometimes to the point where I feel like, am I over communicating too much? Am I giving like TMI? But I think there's no such thing as too much when it comes to letting the business owner know where they stand, where their marketing stands, the success or even failure of a campaign, being completely transparent. Because to my point before, that builds the trust. And then, long term, to your point, you get that sense of belonging, and hey, this person's looking out for our best interest. They're not just coming in here to do a service and make a quick buck.
Exactly. Yeah, that's invaluable. You can't put a price tag on that. It's really awesome to have that.
Yeah. What about you and I had spoken before about some cool projects that you did. I know one of them was the Rochester Air Show. Maybe you can speak about your experience there.
Yeah, that was so awesome. It was shortly after I started my business that I was introduced to another company that invited me in to basically bid on the social media for the air show. And so that was one of the biggest projects I had ever kind of dabbled in. And so it was a little nerve-wracking going into that first meeting. I didn't really know what to expect and everything, but ended up meeting some great people and began their campaign. Actually, last year around this time, I've been getting some time hop notices saying, "Oh, you did this last year," and what an experience! I mean, being able to really pretty much become the brand spokesperson for them as the social media lead. And we did a really fun approach where we created it as we created a vlog. And so anything I did pertaining to the air show, we would tape it and then we would put it into a monthly vlog, and sometimes a couple times a month. And that was really awesome because it helped me to connect with so many people in the audience. And this is an audience I wasn't familiar with. I'm not an air show junkie. I haven't gone through, life chasing air shows. Now I'm obsessed with it. But back a year ago, it was a new market for me. And so being able to connect with these people just through video, and by the end, being able to talk to them at the air show, and they're like, "Hey, Bree, how's it going?" And it was just awesome. And just working with, some great people. And I loved the experience. I also, one of the coolest things was I got to fly a plane. And so that was terrifying, but super fun.
Did you fly it?
No, I flew it. And so that was like a whole new experience for me, of course, I'm sure for a lot of people. So I show up and I'm like ready to go. And I'm like, okay, so I'll just be, here I am in the cockpit, and then he says, "Oh no, you're going to actually be flying the plane." And I go, "Oh my gosh." And I was already nervous because I'm terrified of heights, and I'm in a pretty small plane. So anyways, I had about an hour and a half where he gave me a lesson, and then we went up into the air, and I took control and was in control. And so it was crazy, and one of the coolest things I've ever done. So from that experience, that definitely is at the top of my list.
Yeah, I think I probably would have waived my fee if they said, "Well, we'll either pay you or you could go fly one of the." Was it a Blue Angel?
It wasn't. No. So we had the Thunderbirds last year, and I didn't go up with them. I was actually it's called a Diamond DA-40, and one of the locations on site at the airport, I was able to fly up with them, and it's a flight school, actually, Encore Flight. And so I was taught by one of the owner of that, actually. So yeah, that was really cool. But I did meet the Thunderbirds, which was another huge moment. And I have some really cool photos, and it was very humbling to meet them, and really kind of puts a lot into perspective, especially as they landed for the first time. I remember my husband still makes fun of me because I started crying as they were landing, but it's just one of those moments where you're overcome with a lot of emotion. Well, I was, but.
Yeah, I think circling back to what you said, where you weren't airplane junkie before, but you kind of like now are into it, like you knew the name of the plane and everything now. I think for businesses like ours, one thing I really enjoy about working with different companies is getting an understanding of just various different fields and what they go through day to day, and how they overcome things, yes, but how they deliver a product or a service or whatever their offering is to the community. And it always, specifically in marketing, right? Because you have to be inundated, right? You have to know exactly what they're doing. So a little bit more in depth for me there than it was in IT. But still, it makes the day go by so fast, and nothing's ever the same, right? You're not doing the same menial tasks day in and day out. And it's just an awesome experience to be able to get, I don't know, a little bit of an insight into different industries.
Oh yeah, that's what's been really cool for me, is just so many different industries. So, the air show is just one, but there's a slew of them, and I've learned a lot along the way, and continue to learn each day. So that's the fun of it.
Yeah. So maybe, the big news story, obviously Corona and all of that. What's you specialize a lot within PR, so what's been your approach? And obviously different clients vary on I'm sure how that goes, but overall, what's been your approach with Corona, marketing wise, with your clients?
Yeah, it's such an interesting climate, such an interesting time. I think that honesty and transparency has been my go-to. Just saying to them, we've never been through this before, so we have to really test the waters and see, because for every single brand and every single audience, it's a different story. So you have to make sure that you're catering to your audience the best as you can. And so I have a company that I'm working with right now, one of my clients, and I had a PR campaign all laid out, beautifully laid out, so ready to be launched. And then Corona hit. And so we had to just go back to the drawing board and just sitting down with them and saying, here's our options, doing the research. I think that's been one of the biggest things for me is we can learn so much from other people and talking to other people in shared industries. And for me, that's been such a huge part of continuing my success, because I'm talking to people and saying, you guys have even more experience in this piece of it. What would you do? And I think that's the beauty of being able to collaborate and seeing it as, we're all in this together. And so that's been my approach, really, is just sitting down with other like-minded people and saying, here's this scenario, and then going back to the client and discussing with them and taking it from there. And being able to adapt, I think, is one of the biggest things, because sometimes in the marketing world, we get so stuck on a plan that we've created and we become attached to it. It's like a baby, you're excited to launch it. And you just have to realize that it is just, you have to be flexible. And so I think that that's what this has taught me. And you also have to be compassionate and realize that a lot of people are coming from a lot of different places, and just take it at each moment and how you can kind of go from there.
Yeah, I've been learning, not that it was an area that I was bad at, but I've had to sort of think to myself that I have to practice what I'm preaching to clients, right? So as marketers, we talk a lot about brand, right? And how there's empathy and compassion, within a brand, or at least there should be. And, as business people, you kind of have to turn around and shine that light on yourself a little bit, when it comes to that. And a couple of the obstacles, to your point about marketing and sort of the things that marketers have to overcome, or tendencies we have to get better at, I think is patience and timing. And maybe those go hand in hand, but for marketers, we drop a campaign, and a lot of the campaign is based around timing. So time of year or age of company, right? If it's a newer company, you have a different marketing strategy versus somebody who has something already established. So we get very caught up in rightfully so, in a normal environment, we get very caught up in that timing and what needs to be done when, and how something should happen. And if anything, God forbid another pandemic happens, but if anything, I'm going to come away from this learning that adapting, having patience, and being able to kind of pull back and wait, and just wait and see, and kind of give and take, ebb and flow of what should happen when, because our society as a whole is very impatient. We want things now. And for marketers, we put a lot of time and effort into campaigns, and we hate to see all that work be for nothing, right? Like, I know, I'm sure for you, for me, a lot of the reason why I love marketing is I love to just put the work out there and watch the success happen for clients. And so to pull those reins back and say, maybe this just isn't the right time for this campaign. It hurts. It's like, it's so painful, but when you think about long-term, what's right for the brand of a customer, and even, our own businesses, you have to have that patience and settle on what's best.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I'm such an overachiever. And so I'm feeling like, okay, I want to see them be successful, possibly just as much as they want us to be successful, and I share that hurt when that happens. And so just being honest with them and saying, we're going to make this work, and it may not be tomorrow like we thought, but a couple months down the road, it's all going to balance out, and just looking at it like that.
Yeah, I think the good thing about the community too is people understand, right? Like, if there was other circumstances, maybe it would be different, but this is impacting everybody, every industry. And so it's a lot easier for people to understand, right, about, some obstacles that we're going through. So that's at least, a silver lining.
Definitely.
So what about where you see your business going in the future? So, you're about a year in right now, right?
Year and a half.
A little bit
Yeah.
over, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you've laid some groundwork, a foundation. You have a client base established. Where do you see B.Mor Marketing down the road?
Yeah, my goal would just be to continue building those strong client relationships that I started a year and a half ago, and just building upon those and really doing a great job for the clients that I have, so that they tell their friends about it, and just kind of having an organic growth of my business through doing work well, and really continuing to be out there in the community. I love to give back, and I'm involved in a few different organizations, the National Eating Disorder Association, and some locally Rochester-based things around that. And so there's a lot of things that I'm passionate about in the community. So I just want to keep giving back, keep doing those things. I think staying relevant right now is such a huge part of any brand. And so what that looks like now is the form of podcasts and vlogs and lots of different ways of connecting with people. So I see myself hopefully taking things to the next level with starting something where I'm able to, reach out to my current clients and potential new clients and just talk a little bit more about my daily life too, because I think that as a female entrepreneur who's also a mom and has a lot of different things I'm juggling, I know that there's a market out there that I can really connect with a lot of other female entrepreneurs too. And so that's one of my goals too, is just to really make those lasting connections in just a personal manner too. I think that a lot of times a personalized brand is one of the best brands you can have. And so I'm willing to put myself out there and talk to people. I love talking to people and growing organically through great relationships.
Yeah, we share a lot. I got the echo again. We share a lot in that respect, as far as just the I guess the personal touch, right? Like everybody, whether you own a business or not, has hired somebody that's done an okay job, or didn't go the extra mile, or even just did a poor job. And back to the conversation I was having with another guest on the podcast, that sort of can be easily shown through with employees, right? Like, they don't own the business, they don't have the same type of like care and feeding. It's not their baby, right?
Right.
So you have to understand that. But I guess my point is both of us are similar in the respect that we're all about quality over quantity, and about building those relationships, and about performing and doing work that's beneficial to the client. Because really, at the end of the day, you can sell anybody on a service, but what's that look like 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now? The proof is actually going to be in the work and in the results. So
and knowing how much you can take on too. So saying, okay, right now I can't really take any more. If this were the case, I really can't take any more clients because I need to focus on doing the best job for the ones I have. So I think knowing your own capabilities and limits and knowing how you can continue to do the best job is super important too.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people miss, is knowing when to hold back on new business. And work with a lot of different vendors, right? So different tools and things that we buy for marketing. And one thing that I've realized or noticed is that some vendors and companies get really, really good at one thing, and then you go and you buy a product or service from them for that one thing, and they're great initially, and then you start to see their growth. And then they venture off into like other different areas that still kind of have to do with like the main service they provide, but it seems like they get overextended, and then eventually after a while everything gets watered down and the quality just isn't there anymore. So that's just an example, but being self-aware, I guess is maybe the definition, the term, being enough self-awareness to know, hey, look, I've got enough on my plate. My team has enough on their plate, where if we were to take on any more work, everybody else that we made promises to suffer.
Yes.
And, I think that's the difference between a genuine a partnership, right? Is that when you make a promise to somebody on day one, you carry that promise through in its entirety, no matter how your business is doing.
Yeah.
Like a stupid example of this is actually like DirecTV, right? So like you get like the promo rate for DirecTV, and you got like satellite TV for like $20 a month or something like that. And then like your contract ends in 2 months, and they're like, hey, re-up for $200. And you're like, hey, I've been a customer for 2 years, and now you're like throwing me to the curb because I'm not new. Like, you guys only care about the new customers. So,
exactly.
Silly example.
It's a good example. Yeah.
I think the same applies to B2B businesses. We can easily get persuaded by the shiny new object and the new contract, and we can forget about what made us who we are, which is quality work and following through on the promises that we make.
Definitely. Yeah. I have a business coach that I've worked with, and he constantly reminds me, he says, just always be Bree. Like, that's like my saying, like, always be yourself. And I think that when, as a business owner, you start getting to a point where you don't feel like you can be 100% yourself, which is usually in 110%, giving all of yourself. When you start to feel that way, then okay, I need to pull back, and I need to really reevaluate the situation so that I can continue to be the brand that I want to be.
Awesome. I think a good way to wrap up there. Bree, appreciate your time. Awesome. Chatting, and wish you the best for yourself and the business.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting.
Awesome. Take care.
You too.